In a time of universal deceit, telling the truth is a revolutionary act. George Orwell. Yeah. This is Blood Politics. The only podcast where we don't talk about politics. We be about politics. And our mission statement is to empower, educate, and encourage everyone to speak out against fascism. Speak out against injustice and fight for freedom and equality for everyone. This is Blood Politics, and we ain't stopping till they put us in the grave. We ain't gonna be quiet, and we ain't gonna be scared, and we ain't gonna go along with the crowd. This is Blood Politics.
We don't have much time today. We don't have much.
It's about right and wrong.
What do you say?
It's about.
What's happening, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to the show. I appreciate you joining me once again. It is the 10th of June, 2026. It is Wednesday, and I appreciate you, like I said, for joining me here. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. What's going on to everybody over there on this space? Thank you to the mods over there. Thank you to Matt, as always. And, of course, thank you to the best chat in the world here, which is the Blunt Politics community. And thank you to the mods over here. I really do appreciate you guys for joining me. Like I said, 10 June, 2026. Lots to discuss. But before we do that, what do you say we bring in the chat? Say hi to you fabulous people that make this show go. You guys deserve some screen time every now and again. There you go. What's going on? What's up, Jeff? What's happening, Chris? What's going on, brother? What's up, DPD? How are you? Good to see you. What's up, Tamra? What's up, Mr. Foss? I see you over there on Twitch. Thank you to Facebook. Thank you to YouTube. Thank you to Twitch. Thank you to Instagram. Thank you to Substack for making this possible, and everybody hitting that like button, sharing the stream, subscribing to the channel, following the channel, whatever you do on those platforms. Thank you guys for doing it. What's up, Twiggy? I see you, Jamie. How are you? What's going on, everybody? What's up, Evie's aunt? What's going on, guys? What's up, Tiff? Thank you so much. Appreciate you for joining us. Thank you for doing what you guys do down there. What's up, Yakov? Hope you feel better, brother. Sorry that Yakov is down with the sickness right now, so I appreciate you for fighting through that and, you know, dealing with the bullshit down there in the chat. So appreciate it. If you can't hang, don't worry about it. You get your rest, eat some soup, whatever you got to do, drink some tea, you know, all the good things, all the remedies. You know what I mean? But yeah, thank you. What's going on, Deb? What's happening, people? What's up, Roxanne? Good to see you. Yeah, ton to talk about today. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you hit that like button, as you always do, as you're known to do. We're going to be talking about the World Cup disaster, whether that's from an immigration standpoint, a ticket sales standpoint, a towns and cities spending a fortune on, you know, security and making sure that not only the people going to the games are safe, but the players and the coaches are safe and the people in the surrounding communities are safe. So it's a pretty big disaster, as we knew it was going to be. Anything that Donald Trump is in control of, whether it was the military parade, obviously the ongoing 250th celebration of this country, or, you know, the World Cup, it was just going to be a shit show. And again, we got some clips and some articles to pretty much depict that exact thing. So we got that. We got another pay-to-play scheme revealed in the Trump corruption saga. You know, again, the most corrupt administration in the history of the United States. And we got another one that shows you just how easy it is to have a pay-for-play scheme now with this president. We'll be talking about how inflation has just hit a 3-year high. And this is, again, we're not even talking about the Bab el-Mandeb Strait being closed yet. So, I mean, the economic, you know, the economic failures and the economic pressures put upon the world right now are, I mean, we're teetering on an edge, whether it's, you know, jet fuel, whether it is fertilizer, whether it's obviously the Strait of Hormuz. We're talking about the Bab el-Mandeb. And that leads me to, we're going to have a clip from the Rest is Politics podcast. And they're discussing, I believe they were just in a conference in a Scandinavian country. I forget what country they said, but they had some meetings with people that know a lot about energy infrastructure, know a lot about energy and oil and kind of the impacts and ramifications of this war. And they're coming out of this a little bit astonished at the timelines that they were given, at just how close we are from economic disaster, whether that be the strategic oil reserves, you know, obviously countries all around the world dealing with the ramifications of the Strait of Hormuz being closed, like just how close we are to like substantial economic disaster around the world. So we'll be talking about that. There's more info coming out on the Russian general that went das vidanya, let's just say. So we got more about his name, what he was responsible for, as as it pertains to the Russian military. It had to do with supplies. So you can see kind of why it would be a justifiable military target. I haven't seen anybody take credit for it, but there's also suggestions out there saying that the guy's son could be in some way responsible for this, because he had put out on a Telegram post the license plate, the registration of his father's vehicle that he was using, and it's suspected that that was the same vehicle. So again, links could be made from that, but I think that's just people kind of suspecting and speculating. And then obviously, if we have some time, we got a battle plans update from the Sun detailing what's going on the front lines of Ukraine as well. But like I said, we only have an hour today on the early show. Anything that we don't get to today, be sure to pop on later tonight, 8:30 p.m. That's our late show. We got 2 hours tonight, so anything that, like I said, we don't get to today, we'll talk about on the late broadcast. So thank you guys. Make sure you hit that like button. I really do appreciate you guys listening to me on this early Wednesday edition. So again, if you could share it out, that would be fantastic. We're going to start it off the way we've been starting it off for the last week or so, and just a huge congratulations, a huge thank you, and again, a big push and urge to get this thing completed. We have hit another milestone. You'll see here, another milestone has been hit, because we have just reached 69 donations. Come on. We can have a little fun with it. So thank you to the 69 people that have given so far, resulting in a total of 9,192 euro, which I believe is somewhere around 10,600-ish, something like that, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know in the chat, but in dollars, I think it's about $10,600. So again, another huge and substantial leap that we've made overnight. We're now up to 44% of the way done. Again, almost 50% of the way there in less than 2 weeks is unbelievable. Let's just say I'm going to go out and I'm going to go out on a limb and pat ourselves on the back here. Not only you guys as a community, but this platform in general, to be able to get this thing done. 20,000 subscribers is nothing to shake a stick at, but it's obviously nowhere near the levels of a lot of people that are, associated and affiliated with some of these campaigns. So again, it is an honor. It is a privilege that you guys have bestowed upon me to get us into these positions, to be, this much of a help. And it's crazy to see that we have a community that consistently, steps up where they say they're going to step up and puts their money where their mouth is. So thank you guys so much for doing that. And let's just see as we do. Let's go down the list here. See who joined the donation wall. So thank you so much to Gregory. Gregory says USA stands with Ukraine. I absolutely appreciate and second that notion. Thank you so much to Arthur for your contribution. Drone by drone by drone. Victory is built on consistency. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you so much, Philippe. Like I said, Colleen, MJ, Hugo, Dame, Suzanne, Rox, Alicia. This is from Nance in the chat. Anonymous contributions are welcomed as well. Thank you to Tom and Victoria, Nicole, Christina. Yakov has made a few substantial donations that I am very appreciative for. This is on behalf of all of us here at the Blunt Politics family. Berja, Mark, KO, Yakov, again, Todd, all of you guys, and then to all the people that don't put their name on the wall or don't want or need any credit for it, thank you so much. And then obviously the people that are sharing it out. This website here, Help 99, gives you all the information, whether it's info on the exact type of truck that we'll be sending, and all the the details and the the kind of add-ons that are on there to go help towards the safety of the Ukrainian soldiers. You can look at a video from the exact 3rd operational platoon, the artillery platoon that this truck will be going to, and then obviously, like I said, you can see who's donated. I really do appreciate it. I really do. So like I said, let's keep pushing. Let's see if we can make that 50% mark halfway there. And then from there, we'll continue to 75 on to 100. And who knows, maybe we'll be lucky enough to hand over this truck in person. So like I said, thank you guys for the, everybody contributing to the Summer of Drones campaign. But all right, let's dive into some of the talk and the ridiculousness going on with the World Cup, if I may, because it's been a disaster on so many fronts, as we knew it was going to be, right? It's just, whether, like I said, you're talking about the immigration stance, whether you're talking about the stadiums, and even like I've seen multiple videos going around of the teams themselves looking at like the conditions, the field, like, how much the ball bounces and what it feels like on the turf. And they're not too pleased, right? So we're talking about that. And people being detained all over the place. I think the number that I saw was something around 20 or so. I think it was like 17 to 20 different people, whether you've been, officials, referees, coaches, fans have been detained after spending God knows how much money to try to come over here, knowing how expensive this whole thing has been. But this is from the Washington Post. Says World Cup players and officials are being detained or barred entry into the U.S. Immigration authority says the tensions of a Somali referee and 2 Iraqi national team members were part of a routine vetting, but officials and fans in their homelands want an explanation. And again, this is just kind of a small piece of this. Some World Cup players and team staff are being questioned, outright barred from entering the United States, angering their fans and heightening concerns about how immigration enforcement will be carried out during one of the most international sporting events. Somali referee Omar Abdulkadir Artan, who was named Africa's best men's referee last year, was denied entry to the U.S. on Saturday at Miami International Airport and forced to fly all the way back home. Artan has a, quote, iconic status in Somalia and is a, quote, symbol of resilience, end quote, said Cisse Aden Abshir, senior advisor for Somalia's Ministry of Youth and Sports. Quote, he was the first referee from Somalia who was absolutely reached these heights, end quote, one of 52 referees selected by FIFA for this year's tournament. Now, Abshir said, quote, the dream has been shuttered. The whole nation is pissed off now, Abshir said, adding that the fans are angry at both the U.S. government and FIFA, global soccer's governing body. The tournament should be given to a country that gives everybody equal opportunity. And this is nothing new for FIFA, a well-known corrupt organization. This was something we talked about. Was it how many years ago at this point with, the stadiums they were building for their last World Cup, and all of the, the death and destruction that came from that as well. This goes on to say that everything was under control, that the Somali officials are waiting to hear from the U.S. government on why exactly he was denied entry. Abshir and Artan reported being detained for 11 hours and questioned. Artan was greeted by a crowd of supporters and officials when he arrived Wednesday in Mogadishu. He says, I promise you, God willing, that I will attend the next one. He told those gathered at the airport, according to the Associated Press. I want the Somali public to take comfort in this and remain confident. Like I said, this is just a small piece. There's been fans, that spent thousands and thousands of dollars that were not able to get entry into the United States, that lose all of that money. It goes on, too, because you can see this is another aspect of it, because it's not only a disaster as far as the immigration stance, but, this is a Financial Times report saying FIFA's resale portal currently lists 176,000 tickets for the opening group phase of the competition. When each team plays 3 other countries, it says FIFA faces empty seats as 180,000 World Cup tickets hit resale market. And like I said, towns and cities all over the place around here are spending exorbitant amounts of money to try to, get enough protection, to get the, enough personnel in place to block the roads that need to be blocked, whatever it may be that goes along with these events taking place in these, towns and cities that they're happening in. Like, they're also struggling to get ad revenue the last time that I checked. So a lot of companies don't want to invest in this. They don't want their names attached to anything associated with Donald Trump or anything associated with FIFA. So they were struggling in that aspect too. So towns and cities were wondering, okay, so if we're spending $30 million, let's just say, how do we expect to get repaid? Who are we billing for that, right? Are we getting that money now from FIFA? Because it clearly didn't come up front for us to spend on this security and obviously blocking off traffic. And again, all the things that go along with this and is associated with a town that has to put on an event like this, but not a good thing to see. And this is a lot with the ticket prices. I mean, we've talked about how this is endlessly too expensive for normal, everyday working Joes to be able to do. And of course, there are people that are splurging because it's a once in a lifetime thing. But believe me, they're recognizing how expensive this is, from the ticket sales. I mean, from the ticket prices to the hotels, to the taxis, to the drinks and food where they're staying. I mean, all of it is ridiculously overpriced. And, this is just to show you it's not just that one Financial Times report. Here's one from Independent. Nearly 180,000 tickets are still available through World Cup resale portals. And again, not showing. It says soccer fans hoping to snag a World Cup 2026 ticket may be in luck. There's still approximately 180,000 tickets left in resale portals for the big tournament this summer. According to new analysis by the Financial Times, nearly 180,000 tickets for the World Cup, which kicks off this Thursday, are still for sale on FIFA's official resale portals. FIFA's ticket prices are so high for the tournament that in some cases, scalpers have had to discount their holdings by approximately 20% just to move the paper. the Daily Beast reported. Tickets for even low-profile games in the U.S. can run fans around $140 per ticket. The most expensive tickets for regular seats at the U.S. opener were priced at $2,735. Get the fuck out of here. Before you've had a fucking Duga, right? Before you've even had a beer. 2,000. That's not even getting to the place. That's not even your stay, depending on where you're coming from. Like, piss off. I'll watch it on TV so I can see the replays and not have to worry about the jackass next to me, apparently. Even though, of course, I'd love to be at that. You know, it's a great environment, great experience regardless, but still, not for that amount. I'll sit right in my air-conditioned house on my fucking couch with a nice cold beer that I paid not as much as you'd pay for it in this stadium, and I'll be all set. I'll get all the angles, I'll get all the coverage, and you guys can have fun with that fucking $3,000. That's more than the final cost at the seat for the 22 World Cup final. The cheapest seats for the opener are around $1,000. The Athletic recently reported that the price for any game at any stage of the World Cup 2026 is higher than any equivalent ticket for any prior FIFA tournament. The World Cup will be hosted by U.S., Canada, Mexico this year, but ticket sales have been the slowest for the U.S. games, according to the Financial Times. Again, dealing with a lot of the backlash, distrust, and how people don't respect Donald Trump on the world stage, and obviously attributing that to the general public of the United States, and clearly the ticket cost. I mean, the cost of travel, the cost of everything right now having a huge impact. It says there's still approximately 4,000 tickets on sale for the U.S. team's opening match against Paraguay. So this is United States opening match against Paraguay, and there's still 4,000 tickets. And I saw a couple videos and Instagram posts from a couple games down in Miami. I don't know if they were prelim games or whatnot, whatever they were, but the stadium was nowhere near full. Like, I don't even think the lower bowl in the stadium, and it might have been, I think it was Raymond James Stadium down in Miami. Down in I don't know if it's Miami where it's exactly located, but I'm pretty sure it's Raymond James, and even the lower bowl wasn't even full, wasn't even close to full. But it says Canada's opening match against Bosnia at BMO Field, Toronto, also on June 13th, had 226 regular ticket sales left as of Monday. Mexico's opener against South Africa at the Mexico City Stadium on Thursday is the only host country opening match that is actually that is a sellout. Right, so that's not even in the United States, in Mexico City. Despite all the political turmoil surrounding President Donald Trump's immigration and visa policies, ticket experts have largely agreed that the largest contributor to poor ticket sales is FIFA's pricing. And again, I don't know. I think that's people trying to be, a bit generous to Donald Trump. Obviously, it's a lot to do with that, the ticket sales, and I'm sure, some other aspects as well. But to say that it's not really about, people hating Donald Trump, I think is trying to obviously, give him a little too much credit there. But it says, quote, "I would certainly like to be there, but I wouldn't pay it either, to be honest with you," Trump told the New York Post. Fucking Jesus Christ. No, what a salesman, huh? That's apparently a quote from Trump. "I would certainly like to be there, but I wouldn't pay it either, to be honest with you." The president of the United States acknowledging that the ticket sales are so outrageously expensive that even he, as a billionaire, wouldn't pay to go. So he's expecting what? Regular Joe Schmoes to fork over that much money? I mean, to fork over that much cash to go to these things? It's ridiculous. It says swaths of empty seats at stadiums wouldn't be a good look for FIFA, which often claim the World Cup is the world's greatest sporting event. FIFA president Gianni Infantino boasted earlier this year that all 104 games were effectively sold out, but that doesn't appear to have been true. And again, they go on to detail a little bit more of why the ticket sales are so horrendous. But this is, let me throw this on the screen too, because this was, and I forget this gentleman's name, my apologies, but I believe he's a presenter, and I do believe he was actually a professional soccer player, and I know I'm going to probably get it in the chat for not knowing his name. I've seen him a couple times. I've seen him in a bunch of clips. I've seen him on broadcasts. I'm just not too familiar. But anyway, he's in, I want to say, I don't know if he's in Mexico or the United States, but even he is talking about not only the detentions in the immigration portion, but also the high cost as well. So I figured I'd play this for you. It says righty official. And is this Chris Wright? No, not Pele. Jesus, come on, Rocks, for crying out loud. Jesus, don't date us that much. No, it's not Pele. But I just wanted to, like I said, this is just a minute or two of him talking about the ridiculousness of the detentions and asking basically what the hell is going on here. So I figured this would fit in with the coverage here. Just check this out real quick.
I say, bro, just read that the the Somalian referee.
Thank you, Free Vent. Appreciate that. Thank you so much, Ian Wright. I knew it was something. I knew it was something along those lines. I just didn't want to get it wrong. And I've seen him in, like I said, a bunch of clips with, his mates, and they're pretty funny together. I'm not gonna lie, they are pretty funny together. All ex-footballers, and they are a hilarious group. But again, what he's saying here is obviously poignant. This one's got 423,000 likes, so God knows how many views this has. So obviously this was resonating with people. Let's just say.
The Somalian referee has been denied entry. Every few hours, it's another story. Another story about fans denied, players denied, officials denied, journalists denied. Now refs, you know something, I'm laughing, but it's not funny. It's actually not funny. Something has to be said. It's expensive tickets, most expensive tickets ever. Expensive accommodation, transport through the roof. It has to be said. Is this how the hosts behave, really? For the greatest game, the greatest tournament in the world, is this how the hosts behave? Are we not hearing more? Are we seeing how Qatar got dragged? Are we not hearing more? Is this the spirit of football? Really? You know who I feel for? I feel for the American fans who are desperate for this. American soccer fans who are desperate for this, how embarrassed they must be. How embarrassing for them this must be. This is, you know what? This is the World Cup. This is a World Cup of chaos.
It's very reminiscent to the feeling that I had and a lot of other people had after the Ryder Cup. Again, where the American crowd was very disrespectful, hostile, and even violent in some cases to a lot of the European players, and the disgust that came from a lot of the Europeans on after that tournament, and obviously the people that respect the game, and obviously want people outside of the United States to respect the United States, and the embarrassment that was felt. It's a similar aspect here where it's like we can't even fucking get this right. You know what I mean? And you knew it was going to be a disaster. You knew it was. It's just anything, like I said, under this administration, anything that this guy touches turns to shit immediately. But again, it's to see it crumble right in front of our faces and to see how bad it is, and what people are feeling and saying about it all over the world is it's embarrassing. It really is.
Whoever wins this World Cup is going to have to go through some serious chaos to get this done. I hope we can do it. But something has to be said. Now. This is just like, this is the World Cup. And I say, bro.
So again, that was his piece there, and like I said, 423,000 likes there on Instagram alone. So obviously people feeling the same thing. And then, if you go into the corruption aspect of this same story, you can look at this. Quote, for the past year, FIFA has leased an office on the 17th floor of New York Trump's tower that has sat all but empty. The rent goes to President Trump's family business, but soccer officials say the space sits largely idle. So again, this is a pay to play. Okay, this is what Donald Trump has been known for quite some time, having these lavish guests that have residences in his buildings, but don't actually fucking stay there. Nobody's actually ever seen them there. They just happen to pay, every single month or whatever their fucking deal is to Donald Trump and his family for whatever they're getting on the back end. Right, whatever it's deals, if they're a foreign dignitary, whether it's deals if they're a businessman here in the United States, whatever it may be. But obviously they're not just going to shell out millions of dollars for an empty space in Trump's tower for nothing. So you can see here how one hand fucking washes the other. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and why they're so closely affiliated in Donald Trump's second term here. Like I said, look no further than this. And then, like I said, talking about corruption, we might as well go into this. Pretty good segue into this story. This is from the HuffPost here. And this is basically just how everything has worked behind the scenes for Donald Trump in his second term. This says, an Indian billionaire was targeted by Trump. Then he poured money into a startup secretly backed by Don Jr., which I'm guessing got him out of that trouble or got him out of that, whatever he was being targeted for. So let's read on. It says, an obscure Texas firm secretly connected to the president's son said it received at least $100 million from Mukesh Ambani Reliance Industries. At the same time, the Ambani family secured major policy wins from the Trump administration. Quid pro and quo. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, okay? We're going to announce this prosecution. We're going to announce, the fact that the State Department's looking at your family or looking at your companies or whatever it may be. But if you just send $100 million through crypto, if you just buy $100 million in Donald Trump's fucking, Bitcoin or whatever the fuck he's got going on at this moment in time, if you just, throw something into a Don Jr. backed startup company, then guess what? All of those investigations go away. Not only will they go away, but you'll also get and secure major policy victories where if the United States puts something into law or if we decide on a policy shift, it will benefit your company. Okay, so this is pay to play, quid pro quo, whatever you want to call it, in broad daylight. So just another example. I'm not saying that this is like breaking news here that, the Trump administration is fucking abjectly corrupt, right? But, we go on. It says that in late November in Jamnagar, India, excuse me if I mispronounced that, the scions of the two most powerful families in the world stood face to face. On one side was the 30-year-old Anant Ambani, son of the one of the richest men in Asia. On the other side was Donald Trump Jr. For months, the Trump administration had been on the offensive against the sprawling Ambani energy empire, placing it at the center of an escalating tariff campaign against India. So, right, attacking or at least threatening to attack this company with massive tariffs. So what do? Put $100 million in a Don Jr. backed company. Next thing you know, that company's not being tariffed. Not only are they not being tariffed, but hey, maybe the United States is going to work with that company. Next thing you know, we're doing, major deals worth billions of dollars, and it's going right into the pockets of them. And in case you don't know, let me see here. I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Bonnie, just stick with me for a second here. Residents. Just in case you guys might not know who you're talking about or who we're talking about, you might recognize this. Let me throw this on the screen. Have you guys ever seen this residence? And I believe it's Mumbai, if I'm not mistaken. So this is, I believe, the world's most expensive private residence. Correct me if I'm wrong. It says Mukesh Ambani's residence in Antila, which is the name of it, is a 27-story, 400,000 square foot private skyscraper located on the Altamount Road in South Mumbai, India, valued at approximately $2 to $4.5 billion. Let me repeat that. A private residence, a 400,000 square foot private skyscraper valued at approximately $2 to $4.5 billion. It's widely considered one of the most expensive and elaborate private residences in the world. Let's see here. What else does this thing have? Parking and automotive. 6 entire floors of this motherfucker are dedicated to a garage that can hold up to 168 cars, right? Plus a dedicated car service station on the 7th floor, 3 rooftop helipads, because one's never enough, of course. You got his own air traffic control facility, multi-story hanging garden, 50-seat private cinema, a grand ballroom. Jeez, I wonder where that idea came from, huh? I wonder where, like, all of these dictatorial fucking authoritarian rulers or just really rich people throughout the world having their grand ballrooms. I wonder how that seeped into the mind of Donald Trump. Swimming pools, a spa, a temple, an eco-friendly snow room. Don Jr. probably loved that one, although I'm not sure that's the snow he's talking about, but that produces artificial snowflakes, climate control, rather than standard air conditioning. It utilizes natural cooling system that integrates flora, water features, and advanced air circulation. He's got a staff of about 600 people in this bastard. Jesus Christ. So just in case anybody was like, who are the Ambanis, right? So we'll just go back here. That's who we're talking about. So, Donald Trump clearly picking his marks, wisely, going after the richest of the rich, to make sure that, they could do away with $100 million. They're not going to cry over $100 million, but it would be substantial to Donald Trump and his corporation. But I go on. It says 4 months later, an obscure Texas startup called America First Refining announced that it had received a 9-figure investment from the Ambani's company. Right? The deal puzzled numerous energy investors familiar with the project, which aims to build the first major new oil refinery in the United States in about 50 years. The company is run by a serial entrepreneur with a history of bankruptcy and lawsuits alleging fraud. Jesus Christ. It's amazing how these fucking roaches, these outer cockroaches attract each other, right? After more than a decade of failed attempts to raise money, blown deadlines, and rebrands, it has been floundering. America's First Refining unexpected breakthrough came after it forged a previously unreported relationship with Donald Trump Jr., who secretly acquired a stake in the startup, according to the records of 7 people familiar with the company. The new details reveal the role of the president's son in the role that he played in a theme of Trump's second term, overseas investors with interest before the administration putting money into the Trump's family business interests. So it's like it's a clear order. I think I recall, and again, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I do recall Donald Trump at some point saying that he was explicitly telling his sons, Ivanka, his sons, Jared and Donald and his daughter Ivanka, to stay out of the administration. Like, he was specifically keeping them out of the administration for the second term, right? And I think it's for this exact reason, right? Because he was going to send them on all these fact-finding missions to go harass, threaten, make relationship with the richest people in all of the different countries that he could now be open to as the son of the president of the United States. So this is an ongoing thing that we've talked about. So this is not anything new, but again, just the latest detailing how blatant and obvious this is. But let's see here. We'll go on. It says that over the past year and a half, Donald Trump Jr. has amassed a fortune from stakes in companies ranging from crypto startups to a drone business to firearms retailer. Some firms tend to the president's son have received contracts and other support from the federal government, part of what critics describe as a run of Trump family self-dealing. In December, Forbes estimated that Donald Trump Jr.'s net worth had skyrocketed from roughly $50 million to $300 million since the election. Gee, I wonder why. That's crazy. But the Forbes figures were based on the investments that have been publicly disclosed. The America First refining episode suggests there is much about the family business that remains secret. So again, you could suggest or speculate that it's much higher than his Ambani's son right there. There's a picture. Yeah, that's Anand Ambani, son of the billionaire tycoon and chairman of the Reliance Industries, Mukesh Ambani. I think he had, I don't even want to put a price on it, but I think he had something like $1 billion wedding. Correct me if I'm wrong, something ridiculous like that. Was it like a $500 million wedding or something insane just for this fucker's wedding? Just to show you the immense wealth that they've fucking been able to accrue and why Donald Trump would be going after them. All right, let me just throw this back on the screen. Like I said, I was reading without you guys reading along. But it says, America First Refining has flexed its Trump Jr. connections during pitch meetings with foreign officials. Early last year, Donald Trump Jr. joined the company's leadership for a meeting in South Florida with potential investors from Saudi Arabia, according to two people familiar with the matter. Sound like Jared Kushner may have something to do with this, right? Or at least he's following in the footsteps of Jared Kushner, seeing that he got $2 billion from the Saudi investment fund there, right? So it says another foreign government official pitched on the project told ProPublica that the company's team emphasized that they had backing from the Trump family and suggested that an investment would help the White House access. So again, if you invest, you'll get more access to the White House. More access to the White House opens you up to more economic opportunity, whether it's with the people that you'll meet or, again, just directly from the government of the United States and their policies, right? So it says Trump Jr. spokesperson said that Trump Jr. has no operational involvement in AFR and is simply a passive minority investor in an American company that aligns with his worldview. Of course, that's what he's going to say. The entire premise of this story relating to Don is false, said the spokesperson. Don does not interface with the federal government on behalf of any company that he invests in or advises. ProPublica did not find any evidence that Trump Jr. was aware of refinery executives suggesting that an investment would help with White House access. But again, keeping him away from that would probably be the goal. So that doesn't show or tell us anything either. In response to detailed questions, a spokesperson for America First Refining said, quote, the claims in this story are false, but declined to specify what they were referring to. The company's CEO previously denied wrongdoing in the lawsuits against him, reviewed by ProPublica. In the suits were either settled or dropped. The Ambani family had long been cultivating its relationship with the Trumps. Reliance paid $10 million to the Trump Organization in 2024 as a development fee for a project in Mumbai, according to the president's financial disclosure. Despite the payment, Reliance has yet not announced that Trump project. Oh, that's funny how they get $10 million for a project. That project doesn't happen, but seems like Trump kept the $10 million, right? So again, pay to play, quid pro quo. It's right in front of your face. Ivanka Trump attended Anand Ambani's wedding party in India that year, where guests were treated to a Rihanna concert. Anand's father, Mukesh, was worth an estimated $90 billion and lives in a 27-story home, like I said. To Washington, D.C. What did it say? Came to Washington, D.C. for Trump's second inauguration, posing with the president at a private reception. So again, just kind of detailing the ongoing relationship that they have. But I mean, what else do you say about this? What else is there to point out as far as, they were announcing the targeting by tariffs of this company. Next thing you know, either 10 million rolls in, $100 million rolls in, and nope, all of a sudden we're going to weddings. We're best friends. Not only that, but here's your, economic opportunity as far as relationship with the United States government is concerned. So just the latest, you know what I mean? Nothing new, nothing surprising, but I want to make sure that, most of these don't slip through the cracks because there's so much corruption going on that inevitably some of it is going to filter through and, go through the cracks. But we're here to try to call out as much of it as humanly possible. And again, that going on while Donald Trump and his family are enriching himself and themselves to no end, we have this that we're dealing with in the United States, okay? This is from the BBC. It says U.S. inflation surges to a 3-year high of 4.2%. And again, this is separate from the problems and the economic ramifications of the Bab el-Mandeb Strait on top of the Strait of Hormuz now becoming a problem, now coming into play as far as the war in Iran is concerned. And as we'll talk about in this next clip, the United States is still firing on Iran. Iran is still firing on Israel. Iran is still firing on U.S. bases. Israel is still, moving its way into Lebanon. You got the Houthis firing into Israel, but everybody wants to call it a fucking ceasefire, right? Bullshit. All right, but let's just read into a little bit of this because, like I said, 4.2% U.S. inflation surges to 3-year high. U.S. prices in May rose at their fastest rate in 3 years, with inflation surging to 4.2%. The rise from 3.8% a month earlier was largely driven by rising energy costs, says the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It marked the third month in a row that the consumer price index has risen, with households increasingly feeling the strain of the U.S. and Israel's war with Iran. Higher inflation raises the likelihood of the U.S. Federal Reserve raising interest rates in a bid to curtail spending. The last time inflation was higher was in April 2023, when the U.S. was still grappling with the fallout from the energy shock sparked by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Overall, energy bills, including gas and electricity, were almost at a quarter higher in May than a year earlier, with petrol responsible for much of the increase. According to separate figures from the motoring group AAA, the average price of a gallon of gasoline of regular petrol in the United States is currently at $4.15, a sharp increase from $2.98 on February 28th when President Trump launched strikes on Iran. In response to the strikes, Iran has effectively shuttered the crucial Strait of Hormuz waterway, typically responsible for shipping around a fifth of the world's oil and gas, which has resulted in a surge in prices, as we've seen. And again, like I said, this isn't even bringing into account yet the Bab el-Mandeb, which is something we've said could be a problem and would likely come into play the longer that this lasted. And it looks like that's becoming more and more a reality, unfortunately. It says the CPI is a measure of how much prices have risen in a given month compared to the same month over the year prior. The Fed's long-term inflation target is 2%. May's inflation increase captures the challenge facing President Trump and the Republicans ahead of November's midterm elections. Economists have warned that even with a swift resolution to the war, it could still take until 2027 for the normal flow of goods through the Strait of Hormuz to be restored. It raises the prospect of Americans heading to the polls under the strain of significantly higher prices following a 2024 campaign in which Trump promised cutting inflation would be at the heart of his agenda. Trump previously said he does not think about the cost of living facing Americans, quote, even a little bit. Definitely not something that's going to come back to bite him in the ass during midterms at all, or the Republicans going on into the general at all, I'm sure. But he says that we cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. That's all. Higher inflation also poses a challenge for Kevin Warsh, the new governor of the Fed, ahead of his first interest rate decision in charge of the central bank next week. When inflation is significantly above the Fed's target rate, the central bank's board of governors typically moves to raise interest rates, then in turn pushes up borrowing costs and restricts the flow of money into the economy, limiting further price hikes and bringing inflation under control. In the run-up to Warsh's appointment, Trump repeatedly called on his predecessor, Jerome Powell, in the central bank to cut interest rates. Economists expect rates to remain at their current level between 3.5% and 3.75% next month, but warned further evidence of inflation persistent could force the Fed into an increase. Stephen Brown, chief North America economist at Capital Economics, said May's rise alone was, quote, not large enough to prove any ammo to those on the Fed's rate-setting committee who would want to push up interest rate. But Isaac Stell, investment manager at Asset Manager Wealth Club, said an interest rate hike is, quote, the most logical conclusion from today's data combined with last week's blowout jobs numbers. And again, it goes on to further detail a little bit more of why we're facing these economic hardships that we're facing. But, just as far as using that as a segue, let's go on to the exact reason why that everybody knows is the reason why. And it's this ridiculously destabilizing, unconstitutional, illegal war involving war crimes that has done nothing but hurt not only the United States, but also people throughout the world, which we'll hear in just a second. This is just a quick kind of recounting of what happened after the Apache helicopter had gone down. Was shot down, I should say. So again, this is just CNN real quick, and then we'll go on to this, which is the rest is politics, and they're detailing, again, the similar aspects of what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, but also the information they got from their recent meeting they had at a Scandinavian, I don't know, it was kind of like a forum, I would guess, that they were at. But again, they met some brilliant people that had some really good insight as to the troubles the world could be facing. And again, they seemed to be a little bit shocked at the news that they were getting. So just real quick from CNN here, and then we'll dive on to that. Make sure you hit that like button, guys, if you are enjoying the podcast, if you do like what you're hearing, if you like what you're seeing. Like, share, subscribe goes a long, long way. I know it's mundane and repetitive that you hear on these channels, but it does go a long, long way in helping grow this platform. So again, CNN just detailing Iran targets U.S. bases with retaliatory strikes after the U.S. struck again, after Iran took down an Apache, after Israel had struck inside of Iran, but also a ceasefire.
Iran says it launched strikes on U.S. assets in the Middle East, including an American base in Jordan. This follows U.S. retaliation for the downing of an Apache helicopter. Iran also targeting the U.S. Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Video geolocated by CNN does appear to show a flash coming from the area of a U.S. naval facility there. Both Bahrain and Kuwait say they intercepted a number of Iranian strikes. The president told Fox News he's getting close to ordering new strikes on Iranian bridges and power plants because negotiations have been so slow. And before that, on social media, he wrote of Iran, now they will have to pay the price. This follows a range of back and forth.
Just typical negotiating tactics, right? Just threaten to blow them up once again and then hope that they come to the table with, all of the deals that want to be made, right? I'm sure they'll come hat in hand this time that he threatens the entirety of the population of Iran. I'm sure it's going to bring Iran to their knees. I'm sure they're going to come running to the negotiating table after the fucking 37th time he's done this. I'm sure this will be the change. This is going to be the moment, I'm sure, guys. But again, just out of the deal, I don't know what chapter that was, but threaten the existence of a country just before or while you're engaging in negotiations with that country after you yourselves has attacked that country. I forget what chapter it is, but I'm sure it's in there somewhere.
Attacks between the U.S. and Iran overnight. Iran saying it launched strikes on U.S. targets in the Middle East, including a base in Jordan and the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Iran state media says U.S. strikes hit 2 reservoirs, cutting off drinking water to 20,000 people. CENTCOM has not yet responded to that. I want to get right to CNN's
and what did we
Train
say earlier?
live
And this
at
was
the White
a thing that we were talking about, going after water supplies, right? Like if you thought that bombs and missiles could kill a lot of people, wait until the water supply in the Middle East starts getting attacked, right? You just wait until you see that fucking happen. And apparently here it's starting. Right. I know that's something that was threatened by Trump, threatened by the Pentagon, threatened by Hegseth for a long time. But it seems like as far as these retaliation strikes are concerned, we did, in fact, hit one of their water treatment facilities. And whether or not they're going to try to attribute that to the military, Iran is coming out and saying that it is supplying a lot more civilians than it is anything on the other side. So, just see where this kind of escalates from here. But I think this is what they're talking about going on.
With the president talking in a much different way this morning than he has.
No, absolutely, John. This is quite a sharp turn from what we had heard from President Donald Trump not even 48 hours ago, when he had said early Tuesday morning that he believed a deal could be 2 to 3 days away. Now, of course, posting online that he believes that Iran has taken too long to negotiate a deal, which he said would have been great for them. Now they will have to pay the price. Those are the words from President Trump this morning. I should note as well, he also spoke with Fox News, and he indicated that he was considering wider military action toward Iran, arguing that peace talks have continued to falter. Again, very different.
So again, just a little taste of what's going on during this ceasefire, right? So we got U.S. strikes Iran, explosions near the Strait of Hormuz. Iran targets U.S. base in Jordan. They targeted the Fifth Fleet in Bahrain. Exchange triggered by Iran's downing of the U.S. helicopter, and also strikes threaten fragile ceasefire is, again, the most ridiculous point that they could possibly make on that. You know what I mean? To even have to label that last one is just like, what are we doing here? What the fuck? Do you think we're that stupid? Come on.
We've heard from the president. I note that over this entire ceasefire, which started back in April, the president at least 37 times has been trying to indicate that a deal is close. Now, of course,
37 fucking times. We're 100 and something days into it, and 37 days out of those 100 and something, Donald Trump's come out and tried to make you believe that a deal's right around the corner. And I'm sure closely followed by Axios and Barack Ravid's reporting, right? Poking his head out of Donald Trump's asshole to be like, yep, I second that. Donald Trump said so. He called me on my cell phone. And then he just climbs right back up into Donald Trump's ass. You know what I mean? But 37 fucking times is asinine. It's asinine.
I think some questions around, is this really, is the president being sincere when he says this?
And again, here's more evidence of a ceasefire, guys. Just, in case you're just listening to this podcast on the screen, CNN side by side of the young lady reporting is showing us clear evidence of a ceasefire. And of course, I'm being facetious because they're showing launches of missiles, which clearly is not what happens during a ceasefire,
These strikes, the exchange of fire that we saw between Washington and Tehran yesterday, the U.S. saying they were defensive in nature.
Now, what's a different word for like exchanges of fire between two militaries, between two warring nations? It's almost like you could call that a war, you know what I mean, as opposed to a ceasefire. It's almost like that's a war.
Response to that downing of an Apache helicopter on Monday. Has this really changed the president's mind about where talks are and whether or not a deal is actually possible? Or, of course, could this just be bluster from Trump trying to exert more leverage and pressure on the Iranians at a time?
Yeah, because we know it's worked so many times before, right? And again, it remains to be seen whether this is, bluster and bravado, because a lot of military experts have rightly, in my opinion, suggested that neither the United States nor the Iranians want to go back to this full-scale war aspect, right? They want to go out to, we've talked about the United States stockpile. We've talked about the Gulf nations interceptors stockpile, right? We've also compared that to the amount of missiles and drones that the Iranians still have left, but, also recognizing that the blockade is definitely having economic ramifications and impacts to Iran, and also that they probably can't consistently keep up with a full-scale war for too long, but it may just in fact be longer that the United States could hold out, so it's something that I don't think either side wants to risk, but will threaten. And obviously the bluster and bravado of, trying to stick out your chest and beat the war drums in hopes that the other side's going to come running to the negotiating table is still something that's in play, right? So let me see if I can dive onto this next one, because I know I'm running out of time swiftly here. So we'll get through a little bit of this. We might even have to save a little bit for tonight's podcast. And then, like I said, we'll probably get to the Ukraine stuff tonight as well, because I don't want to just fly through that. I want to give it the due diligence it deserves. But this one I did want to look at for just a couple minutes with you guys. This is The Rest is Politics, right? And this is titled, quote, "The Worst Economic Crisis." And it says the consequences of Trump's Iran war. And like I said, they have just come back from, I want to say an energy forum or something along those lines. I think they are representatives or kind of guests of an electricity company or some organization put together in Europe for electricity. I know I'm probably getting that wrong, but anyway, they got the opportunity to speak with some pretty brilliant people and people that understand energy and the ramifications of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And they're kind of shocked at just kind of the time frame they were given at, what we're looking at as far as jet fuel, as far as fertilizer, the reserves as far as oil from different countries around the world. None of us are quite on the level of China as far as, the stockpiles of oil that they've put together to make sure that they can be somewhat insulated from what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz. But all right, before I waste too much time, this is, like I said, The Rest is Politics, detailing just how close we are to this substantial economic worldwide crisis, right? Not just here in the United States. We've talked about the Asian Pacific markets, Africa, European markets, the whole shebang at this point, right? That's how closely interconnected and intertwined we are as a global trading force, right? That's how this works, right? It's not just if you have stuff that you directly need coming through the Strait of Hormuz. It's if you have, a nation, an ally that has stuff that comes through the Strait of Hormuz, then you're going to be directly impacted, right? It's kind of what Volodymyr Zelensky was saying inside the Oval Office that time, where J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were berating him because he said, just because you have an ocean in between you doesn't mean that you guys are safe from the impacts of all of this. So again, I'll go on just a couple minutes of this. I think they do a pretty good job at detailing just how close we are.
Donald Trump has driven us into something that is one of the worst economic crises that we've faced in living memory, and something that we're very, very poorly prepared for.
And if the Straits of Hormuz don't open anytime soon, we are not that far away from an energy crisis, which of course has the potential to lead to an economic crisis as well.
We could be a few weeks off a massive crisis on jet fuel, diesel, that we're not even beginning to talk about.
The damage done is now going to take months in the case of gas and possibly even 2 or 3 years in the case of oil. We, Europe, became reliant on Russia for energy, China for the economy, USA for security. We're now facing real security pressure from Russia on energy, and we're facing political pressure from the United States. Welcome to The Rest is Politics with me, Alice Campbell.
And with me, Rory Stewart. We're going to be talking about Iran, the Strait of Hormuz, and energy and renewable energy before we get on to the tragedy of Henry Nowak and his murder and what that means for British politics. But the first half comes out of a conference that Alistair and I just attended in Finland, where we had some very interesting conversations about renewable energy and about Ed Miliband and about Britain's energy policy and the world's energy policy, which I suspect we're going to get into a bit of an argument about. But we're also going to look at the biggest unreported story, I think, which is probably the biggest story in the world right now, which is the way in which the Strait of Hormuz, which continues to be blocked, is on the verge of crippling Asian economies, African economies, European economies, and not just through oil, which is people are talking about, but through oil products, jet fuel, diesel, naphtha, fertilizer, and the way in which no national politicians are being honest about the fact that Donald Trump has driven us into something that is probably one of the worst economic crises that we've faced in living memory, and something that we're very, very poor.
Donald Trump has driven us into one of the worst economic crises in living memory. Okay. And again, that's kind of selling it short even, and they'll go on to detail like the people that they spoke to and what they were saying as far as a time frame and kind of that ticking clock that we have, whether it's oil, fertilizer, jet fuel, diesel. This could all really quickly go over a cliff. And if you thought the ramifications and economic pressures put upon us right now are bad, wait until again we face that cliff. We inevitably get to that cliff.
Poorly prepared for. So, Alison, let's start maybe back with the conference. Tell us what you felt about it. Tell the audience about the conference.
This was a really interesting, very enjoyable conference, essentially about electricity. It was hosted by Electricity, EUR Electricity, which is the electricity sector across Europe. And 2 parts in a way, which is why I left a bit troubled. The first part, absolutely amazing progress that's being made on the whole renewables agenda, especially in that part of the world where we were. Scandinavia is kind of, showing a lot of leadership on this. But then also talking to people who really know the energy markets worldwide inside out, who say that we're not remotely being educated sufficiently about just how severe the energy crisis that we're possibly facing really quite soon as a result of Trump starting the Iran war and now his failure to stop it. And if the Straits...
So again, he's saying that he comes out of this conference and he should be happy with the advancements being made and, the work that people are doing, especially in the Scandinavian countries, as he said. But what he really took away from this was like these backroom meetings that he had and people just kind of pulling him aside and saying, hey, listen, the world is not upset enough. The world is not talking about this economic, impact enough, and just how close we are to falling off that fucking cliff. Right. So you can see in the way that they're both talking how like that's what stuck with them. And again, like I said, the time frame and the timelines that apparently they were given and just how close we are was something that, above and beyond all of the technological advancements and good things that people are doing as far as renewable energies and electricity in particular with this conference, like that's what they took out of this. Right. They were even to the point where I don't know if we'll get to it as, before I have to let you guys go before tonight's podcast, but they even talk about how just leaving this, they were like feeding questions into ChatGPT and different AI chatbots about like just how severe the economic impacts would be and how close we are away from those. And they were astonished by, again, the findings.
of Hormuz don't open anytime soon, that we are not that far away from an energy crisis, which of course has the potential to lead to an economic crisis as well. This episode is brought to you by Fuse Energy.
I'll skip here where they go through their little ads. Well, there's probably a couple moments we'll have to skip back and forth because, like I said, they touch on a few different things, but only a few of them pertaining to what I want to talk about. Let's go on.
It was, of course, as always, completely astonishing and impressive, the progress, and particularly many of the Nordic countries, which are getting incredible backup renewables from things like hydro. And of course, Spain, which is doing incredible stuff on solar. One of the problems in the debate, of course, is very quickly people will say, well, look, how come this is happening in Scandinavia, or how come this is happening in Spain and it's not happening in Britain, and Britain can do the same? And the truth is Britain doesn't have that enormous hydro, and it doesn't have the sun that Spain has. But there's other particular problems with Britain, which at some point we're going to get into, which is to do with the fact that we're still paying enormous amounts for the cost of the renewable energy that's already been installed. So even though it's cheaper, put in this stuff, the way the government subsidized it, all of which is sitting on our bills or on taxation, still paying.
Just going to skip ahead for a second here.
Put all the wind turbines in the southeast of England. The problem is that you have them in Scotland and the transmission costs are too big. Anyway, enough on that. One of the things, though, that I think brought us to this is that it wasn't just about electricity. And we began to realize how much the story of the Strait of Hormuz is causing an existential threat, not just to Asian and African, but also European economies. And that it's not just striking through the electricity bill, it's striking through things like jet fuel, diesel, and fertilizer. Over to you.
I think the thing that probably stuck with both of us was we had a private briefing with a leading figure in the sector who painted a pretty bleak, but the longer he went on with the detail, I felt highly realistic scenario if the Iran crisis is not resolved and the Straits of Hormuz don't open sometime soon. And the other big point that was made to us was that even if it does open, like tomorrow, the damage done is now going to take months in the case of gas and possibly even 2 or 3 years in the case of oil.
And we've talked about that on the show endlessly, right? I think one of the other reports we talked about a couple of weeks ago was it could be as far away as 2032 before you see, a 2 at the beginning of your gas prices at the gas station again, right? And again, even if it's not 6 years down the road, even if it's 2 or 3 years down the road, it's another 2 or 3 years of these prices, or God knows what prices we'll be paying, if the Bab el-Mandeb comes into play, if we fall off this economic cliff as far as oil, as far as jet fuel, fertilizer, diesel, all of these things that the globe needs to function. What's going to happen then in 6 months, a year, 2 years? I mean, forget 6 years, right?
As you say, we'd been at these presentations. I mean, the stuff that, just to give 2 or 3 of the things that really impressed me, Norway now, every single new car sold is electric battery run, every single one. Iceland's power, 100% renewable electric. And in Finland, where we were, if you take renewables and nuclear together, you're talking more than 90%. Okay.
And I don't know if we'll get to it if we have enough time. Like I said, we can pick this up later tonight because, again, they have some pretty good information going forward as well. But they talk about the daily cost. And I forget if they're talking about specifically to European markets at this point in time. But they talked about something like another $400 billion a day thrust upon, and like I said, I forget if it was the European markets or what market they were talking about at this point. We'll go over it when we get to it, and there's no benefit coming from that. That is strictly just an added cost because of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu's war in Iran, and there's no benefit to that. There's no, okay, we'll get this on the back end, even though we're spending more now, this is going to come to us. Nothing. It's just pure cost, pure just throwing away money at a rate that was again unheard of before February 28th when Trump and Netanyahu enacted this. But just another minute and then I'll get you guys out of here. My apologies. I always run out of time during the early show, but thank you guys for sticking with me, hitting that like button.
Bad news on Iran. We were briefed that since the start of the Iran war, energy costs in Europe have gone up 465 million euros a day.
And there it is. I should have shut my mouth for another second. So he was talking about Europe. So I'll let him say it again, but 456 million euros a day energy costs have risen. And again, that's not seeing anything in return. That is just strictly because of the war, because of the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and the dumbness of Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. So again, I'll let him repeat.
Energy costs in Europe have gone up 465 million euros a day. Now, 465 million. I went to one of your friends, Claude friends, type friends, and I said,
Yep.
what could I buy for 465 million euros if I was a government? And it said, and it sent me this thing from a German government website that said that the German government estimates that 465 million is the cost required to offer what they call robust tax reductions for corporate zero-emission vehicle purchases. In other words, you could subsidize your entire corporate vehicle fleet in Germany for that cost. So we're talking...
So in comparison to what the added costs are for the entire European market, he's just given a comparison there. You could literally subsidize the entirety of the corporate fleet in Germany for the amount that the people in Europe are now are now paying for added energy price because of the war, obviously, in Iran. But unfortunately, we've run out of time. We'll pick it up today. We'll pick it up later this evening. We're at 7 minutes, 23 seconds. Somebody remember that in the chat. I'll write it down somewhere. 7:23. That way we can pick it up later. And then, like I said, we have a few different. Do I have enough time to play this? Nah, screw it. I'll put this on the screen. We'll play this real quick. Sorry, MySpace. This space, real quick.
Trump is waking up to what the rest of the world already knew, right? Which is Putin's been playing him. Putin's been taking the piss out of him.
Isn't it lovely that he's sort of the last person to get it?
Yeah,
All right, we'll get into that later because it pertains more to Ukraine. But we also have some updates from Denis Davidov talking about some frontline updates. And then, like I said, we have this one from The Sun, The Battle Plans Exposed, also talking about some movements and some threats to Crimea as well. So I appreciate everybody over there on this space. Thank you to Matt. Thank you to the mods. I appreciate you. And I will kick it over to my main man, Jeff Waldorf, and everybody on the Blunt Politics side of things. Make sure you stick around for another couple minutes so I can thank everybody that contributed to the channel. All right. But thank you to this space. Salute. Take it away, Jeff. And I'll see you guys next time. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you guys over here on the Blunt Politics side. Thank you guys for dealing with my bullshit. Thank you for sticking with me. And like I said, we'll get to all of these stories tonight on the later broadcast. I always run out of time. You know what I mean? It's tough for me to cram everything into an hour. So like I said, anything that we missed, we'll pick up later this evening. But just to see if there was anybody nice enough to reach out via Venmo, just here in the corner. Like I said, you could find $1 or 4 quarters in the couch cushions and send that on over. That would be a huge and substantial, would greatly appreciate it. Let's just say that. So thank you to everybody today who was nice enough. Let me just see if there was anybody. Thank you, Bry Guy. Thank you so much. Much appreciated to Bry. It says Hat should be here Monday. Might not be able to listen to the whole show. Got 3 more trees to drop. Slava Ukraini. Heroyam Slava Bry. Make sure you're being safe there if you're chopping down those goddamn trees. But thank you so much for contributing to the show. Thank you so much to Yakov as well. Good vibes being sent Yakov's way. Hope you feel better, my dude. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much to Allison. Thank you so much to Nina. Let's see here. Thank you so much to Jeff. Thank you so much to Geneva. Thank you so much to Allison. Thank you to Dame Dog, Nancy. Thank you to Moms, Peter, Jim, Belinda. Much appreciated. That's everybody over the last few days or so that was nice enough to take a second out of their day, take a picture of the Venmo, send $1 or 2 over. That's all we ask for. Anything above and beyond that is totally 100% up to you and your financial capabilities, capacities. If you think we're worth more than that, if you think there's enough, benefit to the show where you think we can be deserving of more than that, then, feel free. But like I said, $1 or 2 from everybody in the chat would be substantial enough to really change things for this channel. So very much appreciated. Let's see if there's anybody over here on YouTube. I think we got one. I think we got one today, right? What do we got? We got Jeff today. Thank you so much, Jeff. The Lone Ranger in there today. That's tough. That's a tough one. But thank you so much, Jeff, making sure that we didn't get shut out today, right? He says, Alex Jones, Mustad, and other UK D-bags were at a conference at Nationalists in Moscow. Oh, that's a good segue, actually, Jeff. Good segue, because we're going to be looking at Candace Owens. Had her first show podcast live stream since she returned from Moscow. She returned from St. Petersburg, from Russia, on her family vacation. So I want to dive into a little bit of what she has to say and see what more Russian propaganda she's got to try to lay down. Because, again, she's just copy and pasting some of what Tucker Carlson did on his trip to Europe. I think she said she was actually trying to get an interview from Vladimir Putin, and Putin basically told her to stick it up her ass, as he's done many times before, apparently. But anyway, we'll cover that and more later tonight. Thank you guys so much. Thank you to Jeff. Thank you so much to Jim. I bumped up my Patreon level. Oh, thank you, Jim. Much appreciated, my dude. Thank you so much for your continued support. Again, one of the OGs of the channel. And again, can't thank you enough. Very much appreciated. Thank you to everybody that's watching today. I know Wednesday, a lot of people on during the day, so everybody's kind of, everybody's separated. Everybody's doing their own thing. But if you watch this at a later date, if you watch this later on during the day, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and then everybody watching now, can you please share this out on social media, right? Hit it on Blue Sky, hit it on Threads, Substack, whatever you guys are on, Instagram, the whole nine. So very much appreciate it, and thank you to the two Lone Rangers in the 3 Lone Rangers. I see you, Yakov. I see you, brother. Number 1 pod in the world, in my opinion, in my honest opinion. Let's fucking go. Well, I appreciate that, brother. Thank you so much for sticking with us today, and I hope you feel better, dude. Get some rest. Make sure you're kicking them feet up. Like I said, some soup, some tea over there might do you some good. So hopefully the fam's taking care of you. We appreciate you, and thank you to everybody for contributing to the show again over the years, not just today, not just through Venmo, but in any way, shape, or form. It is very much appreciated. And again, thank you so much for the people contributing to this. Let me throw this on the screen one more time because you guys deserve it. Much appreciated to everybody with the Help 99 Brigade, making sure that we can get this campaign done, get that vehicle to the 3rd Artillery Platoon. There would be fantastic. So thank you guys so much. 69 donations. I almost don't want that to change, right? I almost want to stay at 69 donations. I'm immature. What are you going to do? But all right, I love you guys. I'm out of here. I'll see you this evening. Very much appreciated. Stay loud, stay proud, stay aggressive. Get the hell out of your seats and get into the streets, please, because we are just not pissed off enough in this country. But thank you. I'll see you later tonight. 8:30 on the East Coast, 5:30 on the old West Coast, and then somewhere in between, depending on where you live. You should be able to find me, though. And then, again, hit that notification bell. That'll let you know when I go live, when I put out shorts. Go check out the shorts that I do on YouTube, Instagram, all of those things. If you follow me on TikTok, wherever you can, share the show out, share the videos out. It would be very much appreciated. So, Yakov, Jim, Jeff, thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys this evening. All right, I'm outie. Appreciate it. Hit that like button on the way out. Thanks, guys. Thanks, mods. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Hold on. One more thing. I almost forgot. One more thing. Let me chime in just a second. Thank you so much, Tiff, for bringing this up. Our good friend in chatter there, Tom, Unfortunate Altar Boy in the chat. I was reached out to again by his daughter, and we're getting some good news. He's effectively going to be out of the hospital, released from the hospital, but there was a Cash App that his daughter Alyssa started. Apparently, he's going to be needing some help with accommodation. So whatever way we can help and send some good vibes as we try to bring this community together to try to do good things for everybody that's in need, right? So again, Tiff got that on the screen right now. Unfortunate Altar Boy 2 on Cash App. So again, anybody that's got a buck or two, if you could kick into that would be fantastic. Just helping out another community member, another chatter. So thank you, Alyssa, if you're watching, for reaching out. And then thank you so much, Tom, for being here. Like I said, good vibes, well wishes being sent your way from everybody here at the Blunt Politics family, and of course, everybody in the chat and beyond. So thank you so much for reminding me. And again, we'll throw that in the chat pretty consistently for the shows upcoming as well. So just wanted to make sure to chime in and let you guys know. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys this evening. Don't let him fool you, Dad. Mr. Android's just another Wes alias. That's just Wes in disguise. Don't get fooled. Yeah, shout out to Tom. Thank you, Alyssa, as well, for keeping us up to speed on what's going on. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate you, man. Thanks, Wes. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, DPD. Appreciate you guys. Thanks, Yakov. Thanks, Jeff.
Вітаю, Бостон Брайан. Мій позивний танцор. Я представник 72-ї бригади. Дякую тобі і твоїм підписникам за цей донат, за цю чудову машину, яка буде нас возити усіх на позиції, захищати Україну і наближати перемогу. Разом усі до перемоги. Дякую.
In the hell was that all about?
Yesterday's a hard word for me. They're just getting acclimated. You know what that means, acclimated?
Like we always do about this time.
Taking it back to Nevada where he's wanted for banging horses.
Hey, you got a little chubby going there.
White people are a mortal danger to you and your loved ones.
The big, fat, sloppy United